Will you pray with me? Holy God, we live and move in you. You are the ground and source of all that is. Be our guide on this journey. And now may the words of my mouth and the thoughts of all of our hearts bring us closer to you, ground, source, and nourisher of all. Amen. Does it seem strange to anyone else that from all of the feminine mothering language about God in the Bible, we ended up with God the Father? So in our call to worship, all of those references are biblical references to God the Mother. It does seem a little strange. Now, I know that mothers are not a monolithic force, and I think we've held some space for that this morning. I hope so. And yet there's a profound connection that we have with mothers, with all the women who have gone before us. I don't know about for you, but for me, there is almost a feeling of our ancestors in this space with us today. You may have heard me say this before. It still blows my mind, so I'm going to say it again. A baby who's assigned female at birth is born with all the eggs that she will have in her lifetime. They form when she's in her mother's womb. So that might be a little hard to wrap your head around. So I'm going to explain a little bit. The more I explain it, the more like... The egg that gave Cora half of her DNA formed in my body when I was a fetus in my mother's womb. Okay, so what does that mean? All right, you ready for this? The egg that became your grandmother, you got that? Formed in her grandmother's body. And the egg that formed you formed in your grandmother's body. You got that? So you are directly connected through your grandmother to 5 generations of your family. What did I say at the beginning? Sometimes science makes it impossible for me not to believe in something more. This strange scientific truth reminds me that each of us is indelibly connected, not just to others, but to those who have gone before us and those who will come after us. Don't you think there might be some power in us reclaiming the divine feminine? The power of God the Mother? Don't you think there might be power in us reclaiming our own connection to the feminine, whether we identify as male or female, to claim our own inheritance of tenderness, resilience, ferocity, and revolutionary love? I mentioned revolutionary love earlier when we talked about Community Kitchen. Activist, civil rights lawyer, and writer Valerie Kaur writes, "Love is a form of sweet labor, fierce, bloody, imperfect, and life-giving. Revolutionary love is the choice to labor for others, for our opponents, and for ourselves." Hey, I know somebody who talks about loving others, our opponents, he uses the language of enemies, and ourselves. Who is that? Yeah. Jesus teaches us about revolutionary love. He models that for us, and for many of us, that revolutionary love has been modeled for us by mother figures in our lives. Whether the sacrifice they make is to come to church with us on Mother's Day, or to care for us in our years of rebellion, or to nurture us when the biological women in our lives are not able to, right? This Mother's Day, I think it's clear that revolutionary love is what's called for in this time. I think we're in desperate need of it here in the United States, where mass violence continues to be a daily part of our lives. As we live with the reality of climate crisis, as we reflect on the world and what we are giving to our children and our children's children and our great nieces and nephews and the children of our neighbors. And so I want to offer you this wisdom from Valerie Kaur. She writes, "Let us hold our children close and let us confront the truth. The future is dark. But my faith dares me to ask, what if this darkness is not the darkness of the tomb, but the darkness of the womb? What if all the mothers who came before us, who survived genocide and occupation, slavery and Jim Crow, racism, xenophobia, Islamophobia, political oppression, religious repression, mass migration, as many of our ancestors did, are standing beside us now, whispering in our ear, 'You are brave'? What if this is our great contraction before we birth a new future? Remember the wisdom of the midwife? And we often remember the midwives who helped to birth and protect Moses and some of the other Israelite children. Breathe, the midwife says. Then, anybody remember? Push. Now it's time to breathe. But soon it will be time to push. Soon it will be time to fight and struggle for those whom we love. Muslim father, Sikh son, trans daughter, indigenous sibling, immigrant child, white worker, struggling farmer, the poor and forgotten. Now is the time to channel the love of our foremothers, who persisted and played, resisted and rested, labored and loved. On this Mother's Day, let us claim revolutionary love as a force for justice and a wellspring for change. Each of us has a role. When we lead with love, we labor with joy, and we begin to see no stranger, but instead, every person as our kin, a beloved child of God. May it be so. Amen.